Brienne of Tarth. Strength in this world is usually a matter of blood, of magic, of some inheritance no one earned. Brienne has none of that. She is a woman of noble birth in a world that had no idea what to do with a woman who wanted to fight. And everything she became against the grain of everyone around her. She was mocked as a child for her size and her plainness. She was tricked by men who pretended to court her only to humiliate her. She grew up learning that the world would give her nothing, and so she decided to take the one thing it could not deny her, which was skill. And she became one of the finest warriors in the Seven Kingdoms. Not one of the finest women, one of the finest, full stop. She unhorses and beats Sir Loras Tyrell, the celebrated Knight of Flowers, in open combat to win her place at a king's side. She fights Sandor Clegane, the Hound, a man who has terrified grown soldiers his entire life, to a standstill and beyond it, leaving him broken at the bottom of a cliff. Consider who the Hound is. Consider how many men he has killed without effort, how casually he has ended lives that meant nothing to him. And a woman he underestimated put him down in single combat with a rock, and her bare hands at the end. But Brienne's real strength is not in her sword arm. It is in the thing that almost no one else in this story possesses, which is an oath she will not break no matter what it costs her. She swears to protect Catelyn Stark's daughters, and Catelyn dies, and the daughters are scattered to the wind, and the war is lost, and there is no reward waiting for her at the end of the road, and she keeps going anyway. She hunts for girls who do not want to be found, in a country that has forgotten they exist, because she gave her word. In a world where every powerful person breaks their promises the moment those promises become inconvenient, where kings and lords tear up their oaths like paper, the instant the wind changes, Brienne is the one who does not. That is a kind of strength the sword can never measure. Jaime Lannister. Jaime is what happens when you take one of the most gifted swordsmen alive and slowly strip away the thing that made him dangerous. When we meet him, he is arrogance made flesh, a golden knight who has never lost and never doubts, a man so naturally talented with a blade that he barely has to try. They call him the Kingslayer, a title he wears like a wound and a boast at the same time, because he killed the king he was sworn to protect, and no one has ever let him explain why. He is beautiful, he is cruel, he is untouchable, and he knows it. And then the world takes his right hand. Think about what that means for a man like Jaime. His entire identity, everything he is worth, lived in that hand. His name, his fame, his sense of himself as the best, all of it channeled through the one thing a captor decided to cut off on a whim. The greatest swordsman in the realm becomes a cripple in a single moment, and everything he thought he was drains out of him on the road in the mud. What is left is not the Golden Knight. What is left is just a man, forced for the first time in his life to become something other than his talent. The strange thing is that losing the hand is what begins to make him worth watching. Without the sword to hide behind, Jaime has to find out whether there is anything decent underneath the arrogance, and slowly, painfully, we learn that there is. He saves Brienne. He tells the truth about the king he murdered, the truth being that he killed a madman who was about to burn a whole city and every soul in it alive with hidden stores of wildfire, and that everyone hated him for the one genuinely good thing he ever did. Jaime's strength was never really the sword. It was the buried capacity to become better than his reputation, dragged out of him by the loss of everything he was proud of. It is just a tragedy that he could not follow that road all the way to its end. Sandor Clegane. The Hound is strength that has given up on meaning anything. He is enormous, he is savage, he is one of the most physically dangerous men in the entire story, and he carries all of it, like a man carrying a weight he never asked for. He kills with an ease that frightens people. He has no interest in honor, no patience for knights and their vows, no illusions about the world being anything other than cruel, and that clarity makes him more honest than almost everyone around him. He tells you exactly what people are, and he is almost always right. Underneath the violence is a man built entirely out of one childhood moment. When Sandor was a boy, his older brother held his face into a burning fire for playing with a toy that was not his. Half his face melted. The pain of it, the betrayal of it, the fact that the person who was supposed to protect him was the person who maimed him. That single moment poured itself into every part of who he became. He hates fire because fire is the shape his trauma took. He hates knights because a knight, his own brother, did this to him and was rewarded for it. Every brutal thing the Hound does traces back to a fire and a child who learned that the world would not save him. and yet he is one of the few characters who actually grows. He protects Sansa when no one else will. He drags Arya across the ruined country, snarling the whole way, and somewhere in that journey he becomes the closest thing to a guardian she has. He learns, late and reluctantly, that he can choose to be more than the weapon his brother made him. His strength was always obvious in his body. What took a lifetime to surface was the strength it takes to stop being only that. Cersei Lannister. Cersei never lifts a sword, and she is one of the most dangerous people in the Seven Kingdoms. Her strength is a different kind entirely. Colder, more patient, more willing to burn down the world than lose control of it. She was born into power and told her whole life that her only value was in the marriage she would be traded into. And she watched her father wield real authority while she was handed off like a possession, and she decided that she would never be powerless again, no matter who she had to destroy to make it so. And the thing that makes Cersei terrifying is that she means it. She loses everything, over and over. Her children, whom she loves, with a ferocity that is the one uncorrupted thing in her, die one by one, and each death hardens her further instead of breaking her. She is stripped naked and marched through the streets of her own city, while the people she rules over scream abuse and throw filth at her, a humiliation designed to shatter her completely. And she survives it, and she walks back into that castle with her face like stone, and she begins planning how to make every single person who watched her suffer pay for it. When she finally strikes back, she fills the great sept of the city with wildfire and murders hundreds of her enemies in a single blast. Her rivals, her tormentors, all of them, gone in one green fireball, while she watches from a window with a glass of wine. Cersei's power is that she has nothing left to lose, and no line she will not cross. Love made her human once, and every loss burned a little more of that humanity away, until what remained was pure will, pointed at a single goal, which was to sit on the throne and make the world suffer for what it took from her. She is not strong the way a warrior is strong. She is strong the way a fire in a locked room is strong. Jaqen H'ghar. Some strength does not announce itself. It simply arrives, does the impossible, and vanishes. Jaqen H'ghar is a man Arya meets in a cage, a prisoner being carted north with two others, and he seems at first like nothing more than a strange, charming criminal with an odd way of speaking. And then he begins killing people she names, cleanly, silently, as if death itself were a favor he could grant. Because that is exactly what he is. He is a member of the Faceless Men, the most feared assassins in the entire world, servants of a death god who can become anyone they wish. Understand what that ability actually is. A faceless man can take the face of the dead and wear it as his own, walk into any room as any person, and no lock, no guard, no wall of stone can keep him out. They kill kings. They kill men surrounded by armies. There is no one so protected that a faceless man cannot reach him, because the faceless man might already be the servant pouring his wine, the whore in his bed, the friend at his side. They do not fight. They do not need to. By the time you know one is in the room, you are already dead. And Jaqen's true strength is not even the killing. It is that he has erased himself so completely that he is barely a person anymore. The faceless men give up their names, their faces, their identities, everything that makes a self, and they become nothing so that they can become anyone. Jaqen is not really Jaqen. He is a mask over an absence, a man who traded his own existence for the power to end anyone else's. He offers to teach Arya this art, and what he is really offering her is the chance to disappear the way he has disappeared, to become no one at all. Tywin Lannister. Tywin Lannister never picks up a sword in the entire story, and he casts a longer shadow over the Seven Kingdoms than almost any man alive. His strength is intellect, ruthlessness, and an understanding of power so cold and so precise that he shapes the fate of the realm from behind a table. He is the head of the richest family in the world, and he built that family up from humiliation, because when he inherited it, House Lannister was a joke, its previous lord weak and mocked, its power crumbling. Tywin rebuilt it into the most feared name in the kingdoms through nothing but will and terror, and the way he does it tells you everything about him. Early in his life, a lesser house that owed the Lannisters money decided to rebel and laugh at them openly. Tywin did not negotiate. He did not warn them. He rode out and extinguished the entire house. Every man, every woman, every child, wiped from the earth so completely that they became a lesson taught for generations. He understood something that the honorable men of this world never grasp, which is that fear, applied without hesitation and without mercy, is more reliable than love and more permanent than any alliance. People obey Tywin not because they respect him, but because they have seen what he does to those who do not. His masterpiece is the Red Wedding, an act so monstrous that it broke the rules by which the entire world operated. His enemies, the Starks, were winning the war on the battlefield. So Tywin did not beat them on the battlefield. He arranged for them to be slaughtered at a wedding feast under the ancient protection of guest right, murdered while they ate and drank as guests, a betrayal so total that it horrified even people who hated the Starks. Tywin's strength is that he will do the unthinkable thing calmly, deliberately, and then explain to you exactly why it was necessary. He is proof that in this world, the deadliest weapon is not a blade or a dragon. It is a patient man who has decided that nothing is beneath him, Melisandre. Melisandre is strength that answers to something older and stranger than any throne. She is a priestess of a foreign god, the Lord of Light, and she arrives in the Seven Kingdoms, carrying a faith that most of its people dismiss as superstition, right up until they watch her do things that should not be possible. She is beautiful, she is certain, she is frightening in her conviction, and behind her is a power that operates by rules no maester ever wrote down. And that power is real, which is the whole problem. She gives birth to a creature made of shadow, a living darkness that slips through stone and murders a king in his own tent, protected by his own guards, and no one can stop it because it is not a thing that can be fought. She reads the future in flames, and though she reads it wrong more often than she admits, sometimes she reads it exactly right. She survives poison that should kill any mortal. She is, beneath the illusion, centuries old, an ancient thing wearing the shape of a young woman, and when she removes the enchantment that hides her true self, what stands there is something withered and impossibly old that has been alive far longer than any kingdom. But her single greatest act is the one that changes everything. When Jon Snow is murdered and lies cold and dead on a table, it is Melisandre who kneels over the corpse and calls him back, who reaches across the border between the living and the dead and drags a man's soul back into his body. She does not fully believe it will work. She has just lost her faith, watched everything she was certain of collapse, seen a boy she was sure would be the chosen savior burned to nothing for no reason at all. And she does it anyway. And for a long moment, nothing happens, and then it works. And the most important man in the war to come draws a ragged breath and is alive again because of her. Melisandre's strength is that she is a genuine conduit for the supernatural in a world that keeps insisting the supernatural is not real. She is the proof that the old powers never left, Bran Stark. Bran Stark is a boy who is thrown from a tower in the first hour of the story and loses the use of his legs, and by the end he has become something that is barely human at all. His is the strangest strength in the entire saga because it has nothing to do with the body and everything to do with sight, memory, and time itself. After his fall, Bran discovers that he can send his mind into the bodies of animals, seeing through their eyes, running in their skin. And that turns out to be only the beginning of what he is. He is told there is something waiting for him beyond the wall, and he crawls and is carried across a frozen wilderness to find it. What he becomes is the three-eyed raven, and to understand that is to understand a kind of power that has no equal anywhere else in the story. The three-eyed raven can see everything, every moment of history laid out at once, every event that has ever happened anywhere in the world, the entire past open to him like a book with no cover. He can watch the founding of houses that fell 1,000 years ago. He can witness the origin of the very enemy the world is about to face. Time is not a line to Bran. It is a landscape he can walk through, and his power is not only to watch. In one of the most unsettling turns in the whole story, we learn that Bran can reach into the past, and in some way that should not be possible, touch it, change it, that a man in the present looking backward may have shaped the events that made the present what it is. Bran gives up nearly everything to become this. His warmth, his personality, the boy he used to be, all of it recedes until what remains is something patient and remote, and no longer entirely a person. He is not strong in a way you can fight. He is strong in the way that a story is stronger than any single character inside it, because he is the one who remembers all of it. Jon Snow. Jon Snow's strength is the rarest thing in this entire world, which is a good man who is also a genuine warrior, and who keeps choosing to do the right thing in a story that punishes right choices more brutally than almost any other. He is a bastard, raised in a great house, but never fully of it, always a half step outside the family, always carrying the shame of a birth he had no part in. And that outsider's position shapes everything about him, because a man who has always been on the margin learns to see the people everyone else refuses to see. He is a formidable fighter, one of the best swordsmen in the North, cool and disciplined, where others are wild. But that is the least remarkable thing about him. Jon's real strength is that he keeps looking at the largest truth in the world, while everyone around him argues about smaller ones. While the great houses tear the kingdoms apart squabbling over a chair, Jon is standing at the top of the world watching the actual threat gather in the dark, an army of the dead that does not care who sits on any throne. He tries to warn people, and they laugh at him. He tries to make peace with ancient enemies, because the living need every ally they can find, and his own men murder him for it, stabbing him to death for the crime of being right too early. He dies for his judgment, and he is dragged back from death, and he goes right back to making the same hard, correct, thankless choices all over again. He is strong the way few people in any story are strong, which is that power does not corrupt him, and death does not deter him, and betrayal does not make him bitter. He is offered crowns, and he does not want them. He does the necessary thing and expects nothing for it. In a world built entirely out of people grasping for more, Jon Snow is the man who simply tries to keep everyone alive, and pays for it again and again, and never stops. Arya Stark. Arya Stark begins as a little girl who does not want to be a lady, and she ends as one of the deadliest people alive. And the road between those 2 points is one of the darkest transformations in the whole saga. As a child, she is fierce and stubborn and refuses the small cage the world wants to fold her into. And then she watches her father beheaded in front of a crowd, and something in her breaks and reforms into something harder. She spends years alone in a country at war, surviving by wits and cruelty, and an ever-growing list of names, the names of the people she intends to kill, which she recites to herself every night like a prayer. And then she goes to the assassins to learn how to make that list a reality. Arya trains with the Faceless Men, the same order Jaqen belongs to, and she pays for that training with pieces of herself. She is beaten, blinded, stripped of her name, forced to abandon everything that makes her who she is, because the art she is learning requires a person to become no one. But Arya cannot fully surrender her identity, and that refusal, that stubborn clinging to the girl she was, turns out to be her real strength. She takes everything the assassins can teach her about death, and she keeps her own soul anyway, walking away with the skills of no one while remaining defiantly herself. What she becomes is something the world has never seen before. She can wear the faces of the dead. She can walk into a hall full of her enemies and serve them their own poisoned wine and watch them die without ever being suspected. She butchers the entire house that murdered her family, patiently, one by one. And at the very end, when the dead come for the living and the greatest warriors in the world are failing, it is not a king or a knight or a dragon that ends the war. It is a small woman who learned to be invisible, slipping through the shadows past every defender, to drive a blade into the one enemy no one else could reach. All those years of loss forged the single most precise weapon in the story, Gregor Clegane. Gregor Clegane, called the Mountain, is the closest thing this world has to a living catastrophe wearing the shape of a man. He stands over 7 feet tall, monstrously strong, and utterly without a shred of mercy or restraint. He is the Hound's older brother, the one who held a child's face in a fire, and everything cruel about Sandor is a small shadow of what Gregor is. Where other strong men have limits, lines they will not cross, moments of hesitation, the Mountain has none. He is violence with nothing behind it, no reason, no cause, just the raw urge to destroy whatever is in front of him. His strength on the battlefield is almost beyond comprehension. He cuts men in half. He kills a warhorse with a single blow of his sword for the crime of unseating him in a tournament, in front of a horrified crowd. He is the weapon that Tywin and later Cersei point at their enemies, precisely because he cannot be reasoned with, cannot be shamed, cannot be stopped by anything short of overwhelming force. When a skilled fighter finally does manage to defeat him, it is only through speed and cunning, and even in dying, the Mountain nearly takes his killer with him, crushing a man's skull with his bare hands while poison eats him alive. And then he becomes something worse. Poisoned, dying, ruined, Gregor is handed to a twisted maester who does something unspeakable to him, and what rises from that table is no longer a man at all. He is a silent, towering thing in heavy armor, a corpse kept moving by dark science, stronger than he ever was in life, and no longer capable of dying at all. His only purpose now is to stand behind the queen and kill whoever she points at. The mountain was always a weapon. Now he is a weapon that not even death can put down, a hollow giant driven by nothing, one of the purest expressions of destructive power the world has ever produced. Daenerys Targaryen. Daenerys Targaryen begins with nothing. She is a frightened girl sold into a marriage by a brother who abuses her, the last daughter of a fallen dynasty, exiled across the sea with no army, no home, and no power of any kind. And she ends as one of the most powerful individuals the world has ever seen, and the road she walks to get there is a slow accumulation of everything a person can become. She is not born strong. She is forged into strength, hardship by hardship, loss by loss, until the terrified girl is gone entirely. The first thing she gains is fire. She walks into a funeral pyre carrying 3 petrified dragon eggs, relics of a dead age that everyone believed would never hatch again, and she comes out of the flames untouched, naked in the ash, with 3 living dragons on her body. The dragons have been extinct for generations. Their return alone reshapes the balance of the entire world, and one of the 3 will grow into something the story has not seen the like of in centuries. But her strength was never only the dragons. She frees slaves by the hundreds of thousands, and they follow her not out of fear, but out of devotion, because she gave them the one thing no one else ever offered them. She commands the loyalty of hardened warriors, unbreakable eunuch soldiers, sellswords, entire cities. She survives betrayal after betrayal, poison, assassination, the treachery of men who cannot stand to serve a woman, and each one only widens the distance between who she was and who she is becoming. By the end, she has an army, a fleet, the loyalty of freed peoples, and 3 dragons, and she turns all of it toward the throne her family lost. And that is the danger of her strength, because the same fire that saves the enslaved can burn the innocent, and the same certainty that made her a liberator can curdle into something that no longer distinguishes between enemies and cities full of ordinary people. She is what happens when a person accumulates enough power that nothing can check them anymore, and no one is left who can tell them no. Drogon. Of the 3 dragons Daenerys brought back into the world, one grew into something the world had not seen in centuries, a beast so vast and so destructive that he became a weapon no army could answer. Drogon is the largest of her dragons, named for the dead husband she loved, and he is the one who bonds most closely to her, the one who comes when the others will not, the one who carries her into the sky. But to call him her mount is to misunderstand what he is. He is not a horse with wings. He is a living furnace the size of a warship, and when he descends on a battlefield, whole armies stop being armies and become ash and screaming. Consider what a single dragon actually does to a war. For generations, the strength of the great houses was measured in men, in castles, in the thickness of stone walls and the size of a host, and Drogon renders all of it meaningless. He burns a Lannister army on an open field in minutes, melting armored soldiers where they stand, turning a supply train into a river of fire, and there is nothing the men below can do but die, because there is no shield against a thing that falls from the sky, breathing flame hotter than a forge. Walls do not stop him. Numbers do not stop him. The old rules of war, the rules every commander in the story built his life around, simply do not apply to the creature circling overhead. And yet Drogon is not a mindless weapon, which is what makes him more than a siege engine with scales. He grieves. When his brother is chained and executed, he vanishes into the wild in something close to mourning. When Daenerys is threatened, he places his own body between her and the danger. And at the very end, in the story's quietest and most devastating image of what a dragon truly is, he finds his rider murdered, and he does not burn the man responsible. He burns the throne. The iron chair that every character in the story schemed and killed and died to sit upon, the object at the center of the entire game, Drogon melts it into slag with a single breath, as though the beast understood better than any human that the chair was the poison all along. Then he lifts her body in his claws and flies away, and the most powerful living thing in the world carries the last of his family off into the sky, and no one dares to follow, the Night King. And so, We come to the top, to the single strongest force in the entire story, a being against whom every king and queen and dragon and assassin is a small and temporary thing. The Night King is not a man who wants a throne. He is not a lord playing the great game. He is death itself, given a face and a purpose, and his goal is not to rule the world, but to erase it, to extinguish every living thing and drag all of memory into an endless silence. Understand what he is and where he came from. He was not always this. In the deep past, the ancient people of the forest, an old and dwindling race, were being destroyed by men, and in their desperation they created a weapon. They took a captured man and drove a shard of magic into his heart, and it transformed him into the first of the dead, a creature of ice and shadow meant to protect them. And their weapon turned on them, as such weapons always do. What they made to save themselves became the thing that would try to end everything, a mistake so vast that it echoes across thousands of years and threatens the entire world in the story's final hour. His power is unlike anyone else's because it grows without limit. Every person who dies in his presence, every soldier, every villager, every child, rises again as one of his soldiers, which means that every battle against him makes his army larger and yours smaller. He cannot be bargained with because he wants nothing you can offer. He cannot be frightened because he feels nothing at all. He raises the dead by the tens of thousands with a simple gesture, lifting entire slaughtered armies to their feet to march for him. And in the story's most staggering display of his strength, he does the one thing the world believed impossible. He kills a dragon, one of Daenerys' own, brings it down out of the sky with a single thrown spear, and then raises it from the dead as his own mount, turning the most powerful weapon in the living world into a weapon for the dead. Dragons were supposed to be the final answer that no army could withstand, and the Night King takes one and makes it his. He is patient in a way nothing mortal can be, having waited through thousands of years of winters for the moment to move. He is the reason every other struggle in the story is, in the end, small. The great houses fight over a chair. The Night King is coming to burn down the room the chair is in, and the house, and the world outside it.